Welcome back to IAS Net Study. This is the ethics series, and we are discussing ethics in public administration. In the last video, we talked about ethical concerns. Ethical concerns, we from the three dimensions we talked about it: ethical concerns in private organization, public organizations, and NGO. Now we are going to extend that particular topic, and we are going to see the congruence between private and public organization. Congruence, you can say that overlapping factor between public and private organization. Usually, what is the main difference between public and private organization? Public organization measure uh, the factor or major goal is to provide the public services, transport services, water, electricity, education, hospital, healthcare facility. These are some of the services given by public organization. Whereas if you look at the private organization, the objective is completely different. Objective is profit making. I am investing my money. I want to make profit out of it. So the objective goals, there is a clear cut differences there. And also ownership, there is a ownership of public, it's a people ownership, and here it is an individual ownership or a investors ownership here. And even ethical owners orientation was also very much different previously between private organization and the public organization. Now this ethical orientation, there is a merge of ethical orientation of both these public and private organizations. There is overlapping is happening, so there is a congruence. We can see the relationship or the working area between public and private organization. So let's see at the contemporary time, the contemporary governance, it shows growing convergence between these two. What are there? Four or five aspects we are going to talk here. The first is there is a factor of interdependence, and the boundary between public and private, it is getting blurred. So there is an interdependability between the public and private organization. For some aspect, private organizations are completely dependent, or at least partially they are dependent on public organization, and in some areas public organizations are dependent on private institutions. A simple example, take this example of sugar factory only. I am a private individual, I have invested money for my sugar factory, but the thing here is that what is the raw material here? It is the agricultural product, it is the sugar cane. Now sugarcane, it comes under the ambit of agriculture sector, all these things, and agriculture sector, it is controlled and it is handled by government of India here. So now I am dependent on public institution here, the agricultural ministry here. So there is a dependence factor, even though I have invested my own money for some private factory, but the working of my factory, it is dependent on public organization. It is dependent on rules regulations made by government of India. So there is an interdependence factor. At the same time, even public organizations also dependent on private organizations here. As an example, you can go for a defense sector. See, these days government, they are producing, we have BHEL, HAL, all these things, BML, all these things are the BML, all these things are they are producing the defense equipments for the government of India. But at the same time, there are private entities, private factories are also being set up, private enterprises have also been set up, and they are also helping defense ministry, defense industries, and they are giving their positive contribution to the defense industry here. Here private sector is also complementing public sector here. So there is an interdependence. There are cases where uh, private is dependent on public, and there are cases where public is dependent on private. So the factor of interdependence can be very much seen here. So public interest constraints private profitability, and public functions are partly executed by private agencies. And these days, as an example, the even before that, as an take an example of transport services. We have private buses, we have public buses also. And telephone, BSNL, we have Geo and Airtel. Initially there was only BSNL, later the private entities also entered into the telecom sector. So the complementary factor is there, interdependence factor is there. Even BSNL, it is using services of Geo and Airtel, the towers and all, you can use it. And even these private entities, they are using the services of BSNL. So there is a factor of interdependence is there. So this is where congruence is happening. This is the first factor. And the second is, there was a clear distinction was there before, but now that clear distinction, it is getting eliminated now. See, before that, private sectors, they are restricted to very few areas. Now it is getting thinner and thinner now. The dominance of public sector, it is very much restricted to strategic industries only. And even now, even for the infrastructure, the public sector, sorry, private organizations, they are entering, public private institutions are they are entering. And private sector ethics, usually private sector means that efficiency, excellency, profit making, and effectiveness, competition, merit, all these things are ethics, business ethics, or you can say private sector ethics. Now these private sector ethics is also, these ethics are also very much necessity, very much needed for a public sector also. Even public organizations are also focusing on these kind of private sector ethics. So usually public sector focus on social welfare, it focus on social justice, it focus on public interest. But that does not mean that you cannot ignore efficiency, you cannot ignore economy, you cannot ignore effectiveness. So the combination of both should be there. So earlier there was a clear distinction between what is public sector ethics, what is private sector ethics. That distinction is getting eliminated now. This is the second congruence factor. And the third is, if you look at the uh, even budget and all that, there are terminologies like disinvestment, there are terminologies like privatization, PPP, public private partnership. Somewhere what exactly it is talking about, it is talking about congruence of public sector and the private sector. It is talking about congruence of public organization and the private institution. So the shift towards privatization and the uh, disinvestment and the PPP, these new ideas, they are bringing private organization and the public institutions together. So there is an increasing uh, feasibility between collaborative working of these two institutions. So the shift is happening. This is another third congruence factor. And the fourth is convergence of ethical values, whatever we have discussed there. Efficiency, autonomy, performance, these are some of the ethics, the business ethics or private sector ethics. Even now public institutions are also emphasizing on efficiency, autonomy, performance, accountability. So these factors are getting influenced there also. And private institutions, if you look at the private institutions, even their moral standards are also getting changed. Now they talk about corporate social responsibility, they talked about social justice, they are talking about environmental ethics, see all the stakeholders welfare. Now the ethics of ethical values of public organizations and ethical values of private organization, there is a convergence happening. So this convergence is bringing that congruence here. So the fourth congruence factor is convergence of ethical values between private administration, private organization, and the public organization. So both the sectors, they are observing values of each other. And finally, expansion of ethical scope in public sector. Now private sector are now accountable not only for shareholders but also for the society. The same aspect of take an example of essential commodities. If a factory, there is a company, it is producing essential commodities, some of the essential commodities, so it comes under the ambit of public, it comes under the ambit of government. So here, if there are any mismatch in demand and supply, this is going to create some kind of chaos at the society. So there is a direct involvement with the social well-being also. So the ethical scope of private sector, it is increasing. In the last few reasons we talked about, that private sector, it is entering into the interdependence factor is there, ethical values are changing, ethical values of private sector is changing, private organization is changing. Now the influence is there on the society also. Now they are accountable to the society also. Now concept of environmental ethics, international ethics, administrative ethics, corporate social responsibility, they have become a part of management education and practices now. So the distinction between public and private institution is no longer rigid. It was not before. If you look at the 20 years, 25 years before, the ethical moral values of public administration was completely different. Moral values of private organization was completely different. Now the convergence is happening. So both of them are looking at each other and adopting these kind of things. And it is no longer rigid but increasingly overlapping. Both sectors now share core ethical values such as what are, if you look at both the sectors, both organizations, the both organization want, they need certain moral values. What are these values? The standard ones are accountability, efficiency, transparency, social responsibility, public welfare. Whether it is private organization or public organization, they are working for it. Thus, moral criteria and ethical standard apply equally to all institutions, regardless of ownership, as both impact society and human well-being. So there are five factors of congruence between public and private organization, and you can go through these points once again, right? So this covers this concept of ethical concerns. And next topic is with respect to ethical dilemma. Here in this video, we are going to have a basic understanding, the brief understanding of ethical dilemma. In the next video, we are going to have a detailed discussion of conflict of interest, how to resolve the conflict of interest. All these aspects are going to be taken up. So let's talk about ethical dilemma in a simple way. Let me explain it. Ethical dilemma: there is a situation and there are choices in front of you, A and B. You have to choose either A or B. So the situation is that, the case is that, whether you choose A or whether you choose B, ultimately you are going to compromise with some ethical values. So this is what happened. This is what the dilemma is. You are confused to choose which are the options. There are two, three options in front of you, and you are confused. And ethical dilemma is that both these options are ethical in nature, both these options are moral in nature. Whatever you choose, you are going to compromise with one or other value system. So let me give you guys a simple example, like case study example. uh, you are a food inspector. So now you got an order from your higher authorities that you have to go to some restaurant, that XYZ restaurant, and you have to do the inspection. Now the thing is that this XYZ belongs to one of your friends, and this friend has helped you a lot while your preparation. You are preparing, you have to clear this examination to become a food inspector. Now while that preparation stage, your friend has helped you a lot. You were staying in his house, he was financially helping you, he was a big moral support during your preparation stage, and even the day of interview, the day of examination, he has dropped you to the examination hall, he has dropped you to the interview center. All these things are there. So there is a huge contribution from your friend towards uh, your present designation. Now you are a food inspector. Now this XYZ, it belongs to your friend. You go there and you saw the situation, there are some regulations have been violated there. Now there is a tussle here, there is a conflict here, there is a dilemma here. What is the dilemma? One is loyalty towards your friend, because your friend has helped you a lot. You are a food inspector now because of your friend. There is a contribution from your his side. A lot of contribution is there, whether it is financial support, moral support. Support is a support. There is this dilemma is with respect to loyalty, that is one side. Another side, there is a commitment to what? Commitment to the government of India. You have taken a job and you have taken an oath that I am going to give my 100%, I am going to fulfill the constitutional morality here. So you have to uphold your whole oath, you have to uphold your commitment and dedication. So there is a clash between loyalty and commitment. So if you support your friend, you if you ignore the violation, then you are compromising with commitment. If you are sticking up to that rules and regulation, then you are violating the value of loyalty. So whatever the option you choose, ultimately you are going to compromise with one value. Usually ethical dilemma, it happens in a uh, two dimension. One dimension is that I am a professional, there are some professional values, and as an individual I have certain individual values. So there is a clash between these two things. So individual values, here my individual value is loyalty and my professional value is commitment. So there is a clash between individual value and the professional value. Or I have certain individual values but social values are different. So my personal is that I have no issues with intercaste marriages, but in my community people don't like it. So at the social level, ethics is nothing but socially accepted morality. At social level it is not accepted, but at individual level it is fine for you. Again, whatever the option you choose, you are going to end up compromising with one value system here. So this is what ethical dilemma. So there is a conflict here. So every society has a set of ethical norms and standards that guide acceptable behavior. At the same time, individual poses, society has some ethical norms, ethical standards, and me being an individual, I have certain own moral beliefs and value system. When the conflict happens between two, then it comes the ethical dilemma. Whether it is individual values or the professional values, individual values or the social values or the professional values, these kind of conflict happens. And when these two conflict, or when different ethical principles clash, decision making becomes difficult. So here ethical dilemma, it no matter what, these kind of dilemmas are going to be there if you become an IAS officer, if you become a civil servant. Now the thing is that how do you manage it, that is the challenge here. So this topic is going to teach you how to handle these kind of ethical dilemmas, right? So now, ethical dilemma exists when a person is required to make a choice in situation. There are three conditions. The first is there is a conflict between significant moral values or principles. There are conflict between two principles. The available alternatives are morally defensible yet mutually incompatible. See, both options, option A, option B, loyalty and the commitment, both are values here from individual perspective and the professional perspective. Both are, I can defend both these values. So, but still they are incompatible with each other. So that is where the conflict arises. And the third is whatever the option you choose, loyalty. If I choose loyalty, then I am not fulfilling my commitment as a food inspector. I'm not fulfilling my commitment, then I have to face the consequences. Again, if I fulfill my commitment, then my friend is going to be angry and is not going to talk to me again. So there are serious consequences both the sides, whether you choose loyalty or whether you choose the commitment. There are serious consequences for a stakeholder. So thus identifying correct, ethically correct course becomes the greatest challenge. You have to make a choice which is ethically correct. So that is the challenge here that you should learn. So ethical dilemma. So what are the usual general ethical conflicts? Usually if you look at the case studies, you come up with these kind of ethical dilemma: truth versus loyalty, justice versus mercy, individual rights versus community. This is the major one. This and the short-term economic gains and the long-term environmental sustainability. That is development versus environment protection. There are so many case studies comes based on this particular idea: short-term economic gains and the long-term environment sustainability, individual rights and community welfare. This is so many case studies comes on this loyalty. And these days they have stopped asking these questions: loyalty versus truth, these kind of thing. Usually everybody uh, go for a truth usually, basically. So they have initially, if you look at the 2013, 14, 15, 16, there a lot of case studies used to be based on this idea. These days they've ignored or reduced these kind of questions. And then impartiality and social equity, national sovereignty and humanitarian intervention. Like now, national sovereignty, humanitarian intervention, you can give an example of refugees. The refugees, one side, national sovereignty, it is threat to the internal security. On other side, there is an humanitarian angle to it. So what do you choose? Again, it creates some kind of dilemma here. So these are some of the common ethical dilemmas, common ethical conflicts we see, and these are the common ethical dilemmas we see in the case studies as well. And then illustrative examples. See some of the examples: you giving money to a beggar. There are two things: one side there is a compassion, you want to help a person; another thing is you are encouraging a dependency. So the beggar is not going to do anything else, that he gets to know that is the easy money and he's going to depend on this only. So again, there is a dilemma here what to do. And intercaste marriage or the same-sex marriages, here also there is an aspect of individual freedom and there is a social norm. So social norms are different and my individual freedom, my insight is something different. And a manager discover child labor in the supply chain. I'm working in a company and I am getting very good pay in the company, but I came to know that there is a child labor in the supply chain. Then how do I handle it? Because there is a factor of loyalty, company has given me a lot. Now if I do something, take some action against it, and that is going to damage the reputation of the country, then how do you, this is going to question my loyalty and this is going to impact my livelihood. But on the other side, it is a child labor. So how do you handle this? There is a kind of dilemma here. And the government official must choose between strict rule of enforcement and the compassion. There is an as an example, there is an old lady, she comes for enrollment of some government schemes, but the thing is she don't have all the documents yet. Then how do you do it? You being a civil servant, you have to uphold the rationality and the objectivity. Now she does not have the complete documents. What do you do? One side government is coming up with these kind of welfare scheme to help the poor and vulnerable section, but here because of some technicalities you are sending her back. Sending her back, it means that how exactly you're going to fulfill the welfare aspect. So that clash and conflict is there. So that is there. Again, whether to intervene internationally to protect vulnerable population versus respect national sovereignty. It's the same example of refugee crisis. These are some of the illustrative examples of ethical dilemma. And ethical dilemmas are inevitable, you cannot avoid it. It is supposed to happen. The thing is, you have to learn to handle it, you have to learn to manage it. So inevitable in both public and private institution, because values often conflict and no option is entirely right or wrong. This is another aspect in the mains examination. You should keep in mind that no option is entirely right or wrong. Whether you think it is right, you have to give the proper explanation. Whether you think it is wrong, you have to give the proper explanation. No option is 100% right, no option is 100% wrong here. And the goal of ethical governance is not to eliminate dilemmas. It's impossible to eliminate dilemmas, it is supposed to happen. But to manage them, managing is the challenger. Manage them through the ethical reasoning. How do you manage? Through the ethical reasoning, legal reasoning, transparency, accountability, and commitment to the constitutional value. See, I'll tell you one thing, that if you are facing with these kind of dilemmas, if anything which is going against legal aspect, you should never go for it. So always stick on to the legality. Whatever the legal, never support something illegal, even this is going to cause some trouble at a personal level, personal relationships. But legality should be upheld. Legal values, formalities, procedures should always have the precedence. So this is with respect to ethical dilemma. So this is it for the day. In the next video, we are going to talk about conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is one among the ethical dilemma. We are going to talk about it in the next video. Next two videos are with respect to conflict of interest only. Conflict of interest and then resolution to these kind of conflict of interest. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good time.